Okay, after a long pause, I'm back again. As you can see, like I showed you on our little examples, I've gone ahead and I've carved my 4 hooves, and the bottom part of the feet here. Now, one thing I'm going to find out, or I found out when doing this, is what I should have done was, as I did these legs, as I was working in these areas right in here, it was kind of difficult because I hadn't cut out this area here. So actually what I should have done in that first video was to have gone ahead and carved out this area before I was doing this area in here. It just would have made it a lot easier. So if you haven't started your horse yet, after you get your hooves carved, go ahead and take out this little area here. Now I'm going to show you how I came to arrive at this area. But before I do that, I want to just go over a few things that I was asked about up at the Dayton Wood Carving Show about wood thicknesses. Now Heineke sells wood in just about every thickness you can imagine, and if he don't have it on his display, he'll cut it for you. Now this piece here, this is the size thickness that we used for our horse, and it measures 7/8 of an inch, which works pretty good for this horse we're carving. It kind of puts the hooves together, touching, to where on a normal horse they won't do that, but this is a caricature horse, so we can get away with that. Okay? So this thickness here will work fine for the scale that we're working in right now. Now if you want to go a little larger, you can move up to this thickness, which is 1.5, about right on the button. Okay? Now if putting it together like we did here, this will give you a horse that will be 3 inches wide. Now this horse here is 2 inches wide. How did I arrive at this thickness? Well, I used a 2-inch board. Now this is not big enough naturally to cut a horse out on, but I'm just using this to show you the thickness is what we're talking about right now. Now this one is 2 inches, right on the button. What I did when I did this horse here was I got it on my saw, bandsaw, and I found the center and I resawed it. What they call resawing, because you're resawing a board that's already been sawed. Kind of logical, I guess. And then, once it was resawed, it gave me my piece, which you can see here is wider than this here. I sawed it in two, so I had my 2 pieces. And then when I got ready to cut my blank out, I reversed these like this and put them together like that, which gave me a nice smooth surface to glue up. See, it's nice and level here because it's run through a planer, and that's the kind of surface you want to glue. If you glued this surface here between the sawn surface that you resawed, it's not going to give you a good match the same as this surface out here. Although it's okay, believe me, I've made many horses gluing up this line. So I just wanted to run that over with you just to show you the difference between the thicknesses of wood that are available out there that you can use. Okay? And one other thing. This fella here, this is, sure a lot of you have seen these. They're just model horses made by a company named Breyer. I think it's B-R-E-Y-E-R. You can look them up on the internet. This is just a quarter horse. And when I bought it, it was all painted with different colors and everything. But I went and took some automobile primer and sprayed it because I didn't want all those colors and everything interfering with me when I look at it to look at muscle areas on the horse. But this kind of study aid, will help you a lot as you're carving. It shows you the muscle patterns on the horse from all angles. You can look at it, you can see the different areas. Although we're carving a caricature, these things still come into play. See, you can see that muscle area right there. Well, there it is on my horse. I kind of exaggerated a little, but it's there. Same on the other side. I mean, if you don't put some of these things in there, it's not going to look like a horse. So anyway, getting back to this thing here, let's put him back together. Okay. All right, I took my pencil and I just drew on here. I'm not going to give you the measurements. This is one thing you should figure out yourself. Just draw you a little opening in here. This horse is going to be kind of bull-legged, but that's all right. Probably the cowboy riding is bull-legged too. Just draw that in there like that, turn it over, and do the same thing on the inside. Okay, so let's work on the front legs first. Let's get that out of there, all right? So we'll separate it again. Now on the inside, just find your marks there and go straight across. Don't go up into this area. Stay down into this area. This is what we're cutting here. Not up here. We don't want to touch any area up in this area because that's where it's going to be glued. Now back here on the back, well, I'm not going to cover that yet. Let's just work on the front. So just carefully take that out of there. It's just going to take a second. Good carving friend of mine came down here a while back and spent a couple days with me, sitting around whittling, and hopefully I showed him a few tips. But one of the tips I showed him in carving, how to help you carve, was instead of holding that carving out here like this, bring it back and brace it against your chest. That way it's locked solid as you push with your knife. When it's out here, you know the force of your knife is going to constantly pull against your hand, which is not steady. But if you got it locked up against your chest, it's just like having it in a vise almost. All right, we got the one done. Let's do the other. And another thing, see how I carve into my thumb? That's why I wear a thumb protector. I use this thumb as a brake on that knife blade right there. See how it comes down? And I'll just carve right into that knife, or not into the knife, but into that thumb protector, because that thumb protector stops that blade from going any farther. Alright, let's just put this together here. There we go, see? That looks pretty good. Alright, we got that one done. Now let's work on the back one. Now on the back one, let's look at a horse's hind end here. If I can find it. I'll be going the wrong way. the tail so we can see it better. See how it comes together? It comes down and then loops in. Okay? Alright, and we're going to do that same thing. First we find out where it comes out on the inside. So let's open him back up. Right there's where it starts, so we're going to come around here and we're going to draw it up, so we're about right there is where it's going to come out. Look at that, how I missed it. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to this one, right there. Okay? So let me pull that one out of here and change this. Because I don't want to cut up into this area. Put it back together again. So we're coming down like that. On the inside, you're just going to have to guesstimate it. Bringing it down equally on each side. And we'll separate it. I'm not so concerned right now about any kind of detail. I'm just getting these things separated. Okay, got that one. Put them together here. See what we got. There, it's starting to look pretty good. See how much better he looks now that his legs are separated? That's what I was talking about earlier. Had we done this in the beginning when we're working on his hooves, we would have been able to see the leg shapes a lot better. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going on the front, I'm going to go ahead and bring this down about like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and separate him again. Like that. Together again. You can see the importance of those two little pegs in there. There you go, that's starting to look pretty good. See, we're getting him blocked out now. That's all we want to do. We're not concerned about detail. Okay, on the back legs, I'm only going to start taking off a little in this area here, because as you can see, the back muscle's pretty well flat back there, as you can see on this guy here. So we'll just take a little off here. To give us our shapes. This is good. Carving a horse is kind of awkward sometimes. But if you take your time, you won't have any problems. Let's see what we got. There we go. It's starting to look pretty good now. Yep. Okay, so now we can start rounding it. Now let's just look at our two horses here. See here, I didn't really do too much detail work right in this area here, other than to carve the grooves between his legs right there. On a real horse, this muscle pattern comes up a little higher. But again, this is a caricature carving. We just need to just lightly indicate some of these areas. We don't need to really go overboard. We're not carving a realistic horse. So, first, we've got our profile shapes cut out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to indicate these knee areas. Just like that. I'm going to do one side, the hard side first, because after that it's downhill. And then you folks are going to have to worry about the other side all by yourself. Now, as you're carving these legs, support them, because although the grain's running with them, they're still fragile. Switch knives here because Old Reliable can't get in there like this knife can. Old Reliable's been feeling bad lately because someone on that WCI forum insinuated that he wasn't a good knife. He's been kind of down on the dumps. I think he's a great knife. As you're carving these knees and things, always keep the grain direction in mind so you don't split off an area. I'm just trying to get that cleaned up. There we go. So now we're getting it pretty close. So I've got the legs pretty well blocked out here. So now I'm going to start working on the knees. Just to round them down. Just put it together here and take a peek. Looks pretty good. That's about all you need to do right now. So now here on the back, we're going to kind of round off all the corners. Slide your knife in there and clean that area out. But you can see, you know, the beauty of doing this horse in two pieces. You can see how much easier it is carving these inside areas than it would be trying to do it this way. You know, I've done it the other way, but believe me, it's night and day when you're able to take one apart and do it that way. Now this area back here, and right there. See, it's kind of pinched right back in here. Doesn't really show up so much. The way I do it's like that there. See how I come in there? We do that with a gouge here, a little gouge here. We'll do that a little bit later. Just to show you what's going on. And then I just want to get these inner areas rounded out. So we can glue it up. The outer part, we can do all that once the horse is glued. Again, this leg here is the weakest part of the carving, so you have to be real careful when you're moving on it and pressing on it, moving it around. Just support it and you'll be okay. There you go, that didn't take long, did it? Now, it's just a matter of doing the other side. Okay? So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll bring you back when I get ready to do this part of the leg right back here, okay? What I've done now is I've just temporarily put the horse together. It's not glued. And I'm just going around and evening up the areas that need to be evened up. Because we're just about ready to glue them together. Now all these areas in here, they're not finished yet, but they're finished enough to where we can go ahead and glue the horse together. Because by gluing them together, we'll be able to see the thing in one piece and work on the areas, the two areas together as we carve. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do right now, is glue them together. So we've already got our pegs in place, so we know exactly how he's going to go together. So I'm going to take him over to the workbench and get myself some carpenter's glue and some clamps, and we're going to turn this boy, actually he's a girl, she's a girl, turn this little girl into one piece. See her keeping her knees together just like her mama taught her. She's going to look pretty good. See, and that didn't take long at all, did it? The beauty of this is being able to separate these pieces. If someone comes up to you and says, well, that's not right, you're supposed to carve that out of one piece of wood, just tell them to buzz off. You're having too much fun. You don't need some negative guy telling you it's not right. So let's go glue this boy before I kick the camera over. Alrighty, we got our two horse halves here. And I've got my carpenter's glue here. This is, I think this is Titebond 2 in here. You can use that, or you can use Elmer's carpenter's glue. Just use carpenter's glue, don't use that white glue. Alright? And I'm just going to put a good amount all around the horse. That should be plenty. And I'm going to spread it all out with my finger. Like that. And believe it or not, this glue joint is going to be the strongest piece on this horse. Whatever breaks, it's never going to break on that glue joint. Now I'm going to find my two holes, right there they are, and squeeze them together. Just like that. Wipe my finger off here. And I'm going to get me a couple of clamps and put one right up front here. Another one in the back. Right there. You can see, squeeze them together so you got good squeeze out. Don't squeeze too hard. You don't want to squeeze all the glue out. And get you a brush and go brush off all that excess. Because you don't want to carve that stuff, because that'll certainly mess up your knife blade. Just continue doing that all the way around the horse. Well, there we go. We got him all together. Now we just let him set him aside to dry someplace overnight so he gets good and dry. And in the next segment, we'll start working on the outside of this baby. Whoops, there's a little drop of glue right there. You want to make sure, especially when you're carving, to carve all that glue off. Because, there's another drop, because when you go to paint it, where that glue is won't absorb paint like the rest of the wood, and your finish won't come out even. So just check her around real good. But as you can see now, we've completed really the hardest part of this horse, the legs. That's the part that gives everybody trouble. Well, we did it, and we did it pretty quick, and we did it fairly easily. And I think right now it's going to be downhill the rest of the way. So, till the next video, I'll talk to you later.